It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today we're going to talk about mail. Now, as part of a business, you want to have an email, and you want to have an email that somebody can remember, because when it's time for them to contact you for help or support, it's probably going to be by email unless you have other tools that are very easy for them to access and readily available. And we'll talk about those tools as this series continues. But really, having email set up initially is just going to be so important. And the great thing about the application I'm going to show you today is that you're going to set it up initially using a domain or a subdomain that you own. But the nice thing is you can spread that out to other subdomains over time using this software. And it's very, very straightforward to do that. The updates in this application are super easy. You just rerun the initial install script that you run to get it going in the first place. And really, it just asks you a couple of questions that are already pre-filled. You just hit enter a couple of times and it does the update and everything. So far, for the last 4.5 years that I've been running it, I have had no issues. The only thing that worries me a little bit is their documentation still says to use a Ubuntu 18.04 server. So that may create a little bit of a hiccup, considering that Ubuntu 18.04 is going to go out next spring, basically, for 23. But hopefully they'll have some upgrade guides at that point, and you'll be able to upgrade this to something a little bit newer and a little bit more supported. We can try it. You can always try it on a newer version to see if it works. But today, let's just go with 18.04. We're going to follow their instructions, kind of follow it through, make sure everything's functioning the way we expect, and we'll make sure everything's up and running. So we're getting into the setup of email, contacts, calendar, and some cloud stuff right after this.
I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my patrons over at Patreon. Seriously, you guys make this so worth it for me to do these videos every week. I really truly enjoy it, and I just can't say thank you enough. If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe. Let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job by subscribing to the channel. Plus, you'll get notified when I have new videos coming out. And finally, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, give it a like. Just click on that thumbs up. And that way YouTube knows that you like it, and they'll pass it along to other people that might enjoy my content as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Let's get started.
Now here on the Mail in a Box page, they've got a lot of information for you. They've got a video that they made several years ago now, and it's still a valid video. It's very easy to follow. I've got a video that I've made in the past on how to do this. It should still be valid as well. But we're going to run through this stuff just to make sure everything kind of goes the way we expect. So they've got a lot of documentation. There's a lot of things that you can check out here. You can read through. I'm going to go through their documentation essentially and just show you how to do the things that they're asking. Now, one of the things you need to have in order to run this successfully is you need to have a fixed IP address. And you really, if you can, you want to run this through some tools to make sure it's not on a block list already, because unfortunately, a lot of spammers get out there and start up something like a DigitalOcean droplet or a Linode server or Oracle free tier server, and they run a bunch of spam through it until they get blocked, and then they delete that server and just bring up another one. Well, these IP addresses unfortunately added to these block lists, and you can petition to have your IP removed, but it's just a pain. So if you can find one that's not blocked in the first place, that's better. So just be aware of that. That is one thing that you'll want to kind of overcome. But the first thing we need is a VPS, and I'm going to do that on DigitalOcean today. The second thing we need is a domain name. So yes, I had several domains up there for voting. A bit of levity involved in making these videos. I want you guys to enjoy these things, but I understand a couple of people were upset about the domain names that I chose, so I went out and I got the itpros.org. So this is a domain that I own. When I'm done with this series, if somebody wants the itpros.org, I will absolutely be happy to transfer it to you. The same way with the other three that I had listed over on the YouTube page for voting. But definitely, I want to make sure that you guys understand that you do want to have professional domain for your email, for your services, things like that. If you already have a domain that you're set with and you want to just set up email and you've never run your own email server, it could be really painful in the past. But I'll be honest, Mail in a Box has made that very, very painless for me. It's been really, really great, and I've had a lot of success with it. So I've really enjoyed it. I think it's a great tool. All right, so we're going to start over here in DigitalOcean, and we're going to get a Ubuntu 18.04 server set up. So I've already got that selected, and we're just going to go down, and I'm just going to click over here, and I'm going to get this $6 droplet here, and New York is fine. Again, pick a place that's physically close to you geographically, just because that reduces latency on your side. I don't need a VPC or anything like that. I don't need any of these extra things, but I do need to set up my SSH keys. So I'll set up my SSH keys here so I can access my server. If you don't have SSH keys set up for whoever you use for your VPS servers, make sure you set those up. They're much more secure than using a password. So we're going to go down. Now, the one thing you want to do, especially on DigitalOcean, because they kind of set this up for you, but this name that you put in right here for your droplet is also what they set as the host name when they generate your server. So we want to make sure that we set this host name the way that we want it for our mail-in-a-box. And with their instructions, they basically say you need to have your host name set up as box dot whatever your domain is. You can use mail dot whatever your domain is. Doesn't matter. You can use, my mail, whatever. But whatever you're going to use, you need to keep in mind what that is. Now, they suggest box, so that's what I'm going to do just because it keeps things easy. So I'm going to say box dot, let's see, the IT pros dot. Now I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for you guys so it's easier to read as I go, but box.theitpros.org. So this is my domain. I just want to make sure I spell everything correctly there, and I'm just going to hit create. So that's going to go out and start creating my droplet, and you can see it's right here, and it goes pretty fast. It doesn't take very long. And then we're going to SSH into that droplet, and we're going to update it because we want to make sure we've got all the updates, all the security updates, things like that. If it's an 1804 image, hopefully they've got one of the most recent ones that doesn't need a ton of updates, but it could take a little while. So just be aware of that whenever you're setting something like this up. All right, we've got an IP address, so I'm just going to copy that IP address, and I'm going to open up my terminal here, and we're just going to SSH over, and that's going to be root at and whatever that IP address was. It says it's not available yet, so we'll give it just a minute. There we go. Sometimes it takes just a minute for those things to finish actually getting fully updated and installed. So we're logged in as root, and we're going to do apt update and then ampersand apt upgrade -y. This is how you update and upgrade, or basically install the updates for your Ubuntu based servers. Okay, our update finished here, so we're just going to reboot this server. We don't need to use sudo, but it'll reboot either way. We'll give it about 25 seconds or so. They really don't take very long to reboot, and then we'll SSH back into it. Now that we've got this IP address, we can actually do a couple of things on the setup for our NS records. So I'm going to go back over to the browser. We're going to go here into my Hover account. So this is where I have my domain registered. Now you don't have to use the same registrar for your DNS if you don't want to. And in fact, that's what we're about to be setting up, is that we're going to set up our server to be our DNS for this particular site. So on Hover, it just depends on your domain name registrar, but we need to create a glue record. Now, every registrar is going to have a different interface and a different place where you have to navigate to do it. Some registrars may not even allow you to do this, so be careful where you register your domain, because you're not going to want to set this up with a registrar that's making it difficult. But in Hover, you can just go over here to the Advanced tab for your domain, and right here you'll see this option for glue records. So we're going to click on Add, and we're going to call this ns1.box. And then it already has the rest of the name there. And then we're going to paste in our IP address for our server. And we don't have an IPv6 address, so we're just going to hit add. So we have one already there. We're going to click this again, and we're going to hit ns2.box. And then we're going to paste in the IP address again. Now, some registrars will check to see if this IP address has already been used, and they'll tell you can't do that. So you need to be a little bit careful about that. Here it's got a check mark in both spaces, so I think we're okay. We're going to hit add this one. And so now we've got two glue records. And we can see that these are set up as ns1.box, and that'll be .theitpros.org, and ns2.box.theitpros.org, and it's got basically our stuff set up here. So that's great. This is what we want. You can edit those if you need to, and you can kind of check out your glue records there. So the next step we need to take is we need to change our name servers. So we've set up our glue records. Now we're going to come down here, at least on Hover, you come here to change your name servers. Again, on every registrar site, it's going to be different because they have different ways of navigating around. But I'm going to click on Edit, and I'm going to add another name server. This is going to be ns1.box.theitpros.org. I'm going to add another one. I'm just going to copy this one and then paste it here, and then I'm going to change this to ns2. So you see it kind of went and got happy, like, hey, those are okay. So I'm going to hit first things first. I'm going to save these two, which adds them to my list, and then I'm going to go back into edit mode here. And I want to remove this one. And I got to remove this one. This is the other one that I've got to get rid of. So I'm going to hit save. Let's see if it'll let me get rid of that one here in a minute. Name server 3, and we're going to get rid of that. Or name server 2, and we're going to get rid of that one. So we're just going to hit save. There we go. So we've got our two name servers changed over to what we want to have, which is ns1.box. And that's got those glue records that go with it. And so it should know where that is, which is our server. So for the next steps, we're going to move back to the terminal here. We're going to log back into our box. And if we just do host name, you'll see that it says box. If we do, so let's just do nano/etc/host name. We actually want to make this box.theitpros.org. And we'll save that and exit. And then we're going to do nano/etc/hosts. And in our hosts file, we're also going to make sure that this has everything we need. And it does. It has box.fixitpros.org and box right there. So we should be good for this. So we're going to exit out of that. I'm going to clear this out. And we're going to create a non-root user account. So in Ubuntu, you can just do add user altogether and then the username you want. So in my case, I want Brian. You'd put in your name. And it's going to ask you for a password for that user. And this would be your password you'll use for super user things when you need it. Make sure you type in a nice strong password, type it in twice, and then you can just go through these. Now, if it's okay if you want to fill these out, and maybe you should fill these out. It can help somebody understand like who has this server, who's in control of the server, who set this server up. Could be useful. I'm going to say yes, the information is correct, and we're set. Now, I'm going to change my user to be in the sudo group. So we're going to do user mod-a capital G sudo and then the name of the user, which is Brian in this case. So you'd type in your name, whatever you put in, and hit enter. So that user is now part of the sudo group. Now the other part is I'm using keys to get basically set up inside of this VPS. So I want to move those keys over to my non-root user. So I'm going to do cp-r /.ssh, and we're going to move that to /home/Brian and then / just like that. So that's going to move the SSH folder over to /home/Brian, and then we're going to change the ownership with a -R to Brian and Brian for /home/Brian. There we go. Just like this. Now we can exit and we can SSH back into our server, but with our new sudo user. And if we did everything right, we should be in. We are. Good job. So we're going to make sure we can do things with sudo apt update. There we go. It asks you for your super user password. Just make sure it runs through the update, and you know now that you've got the ability to run sudo commands. That's great. We've already run the update, so we don't need to do anything else. Now, we're basically at the point where we're ready to run the installer for Mail-in-a-Box. So again, I'll have this command in the show notes, and it's on their site. It's always better to go to their site to grab commands just to make sure that they haven't changed it. Now right here, I missed a letter, so I've got to put a C in front of it. So if you don't have curl installed, it's going to gripe. We'll see if it's already set up on this VPS. But if it's not, you can install it with sudo apt install curl, and then you'll have curl. So it's going to run. Looks like it's already got curl. That's great. It's going to say installing packages needed for setup. That's good. We're going to let that run. Now you can see that they give you the version number. So it's 57A is the version of Mail-in-a-Box that it's installing. That's fine. They tell you whenever there's updates in their control panel. So you'll know like, hey, I need to update. It'll send you an email as well into your system that you're setting up for email. So you'll know that there's updates ready. All right, once it gets all those packages installed, it's going to run you through a wizard basically here. So this is just a terminal-based wizard, and it's going to tell you, thanks for deploying Mail-in-a-Box. I'm going to ask you a few questions. If you need to change your answers later, just rerun this thing with sudo Mail-in-a-Box. That's basically how you can rerun this wizard. And it says you should only install this on a brand new install, Ubuntu installation. So they're kind of warning you up front, like don't try to put this on something where you're running a bunch of other stuff and you have a bunch of other packages installed. This thing's going to install things, and it may install things that conflict, and it's going to be a problem. So be aware you want to run this on a dedicated machine. And for email, I think you should run it on a dedicated machine. So we're just going to hit enter for OK. And it wants to know what email address you want to have. So I'm going to put my name at the itpros.org. So it picked up on what the domain is already. It just put in me at the itpros.org. So you can just get rid of me and put in your name. You can put in admin. You can put in whatever you want, honestly. Just remember what you put in, because that's going to be the email that you're setting up as your admin user. Once you're done that, just hit enter. And then here it wants to know what is the name of this server, what's the host name, and it's box.theitpros.org. So we went and updated that host name, and it picked up on that for us, which is great. We can just hit OK. And now it's going to run through a few steps to install a bunch of things that it needs for email. Okay, once you get to this step, you will set up the correct time zone. So I'm going to go up and choose US. That's where I'm located. You would, of course, pick wherever you are in the world. And then I'm going to hit Tab to get to OK and hit OK. And again, I'm going to come down and I'm going to look for the area that I'm in, which is Central. I went right past it. And again, I'm going to hit Tab and hit OK. So they just want to know what time zone I'm in. That's great. So at this point, it's creating a cipher, a 2048-bit cipher. It does take a little time. Just be patient while it runs. You don't have to do anything. Just sit here and watch it. So while it's running, I want you to look at the things that are being installed. This is basically just somebody who said, I'm going to make a really nice installer and a script that helps you install all of the things that you would have to do manually in order to install email. So they go through, they ask you some questions, they get some information, they install a DNS server. So remember, we set up our DNS to be run out of this box. So for this, the itpros.org, all of our DNS will be set up on this box. They're installing DNSSec signing keys, which is great. Postfix, the SMTP server. Dovecot, the IMAP server. That's awesome. They're creating our new user database. They set up OpenDKIM and OpenDMARC. These are things for kind of security and making sure that your emails are legitimately coming from your site, which is good. And now they're installing Spam Assassin to help you get rid of spam as you're getting incoming emails. So each one of these things that it's installing is just something you'd have to go do manually if you were to set this up on your own. I'm not saying that it's not a worthwhile exercise to do it. I'm just saying if you're somebody who doesn't have the time to do it and you want a pretty well set method for doing it, then Mail in a Box is really a good one. Like I said, I've been running it for 4.5 years. It's been really no problem to keep it up to date, keep it running, everything like that. So now it's installed Nginx, which it does have a web server in it. So if you're just hosting static pages, you can actually host them inside of this mail server, which is kind of cool. And then also Roundcube. So you've got webmail. You'll be easily able to set up your email on email clients, and it's not going to be a problem to do that. But Roundcube is nice to have the access to webmail if you want to have it, or if you need to check it from somewhere where you don't have your normal email client. It does install Nextcloud, which is pretty awesome because it uses Nextcloud for your contacts and your calendar. So that's what it says right there. But Nextcloud does have CalDAV and WebDAV built in. So I recently did a video on Radical about CalDAV. And if you're just trying to do CalDAV, then it's a really cool setup. But in this case, we're not only going to get email, we're going to get CalDAV and CardDAV for our contacts and CalDAV for calendar. But we also get a little bit of a Nextcloud install. So depending on how big your virtual private server is, you could even use that for doing a few other things that you might want to have some syncing and stuff with. So like on my Nextcloud server on my normal email site, I use that to sync my Joplin notes, which is terrific for. I've created some shared folders in the past and shared those out with people. So it's really handy to have that out there actually. And again, all these things get updated whenever you kind of come in and do the update for Mail in a Box. It's pretty great. So you can see that you're also getting zpush, which is an Exchange and ActiveSync server. Pretty nice. And then Mail in a Box System Management Daemon is getting installed right now. Now on Nextcloud, it does disable a few things. It disables the photos, the dashboard, and the activity. You can go back in and re-enable those. It takes a little bit of work, but you can if you want to use any of those things in your Nextcloud install. I don't use those things just because I don't want to mess with my Nextcloud install too much. Since it's my mail server, I don't want to mess with things too much. All right, so it updated our DNS, and it says web is updated, and then it says I'm about to set up this email account for you. This is going to be the admin account, so you're going to have access to the control panel. So you want to put in a nice strong password for your account. I suggest highly using Bitwarden to create your passwords. Vault Warden, if you want to self-host, we'll set that up later, but if you've already got it set up, I suggest using it. If not, go out and get a Bitwarden account and use that, but definitely a password manager is a good idea for something like this. So we're going to type in a strong password, and we're going to type it again, and it tells you the mail user was added. They give you a bit more information. It kind of scrolls up the screen here a little bit, but they tell you Let's Encrypt is used to basically get your SSL certificates, TLS certificates. You can see the debug log if you need to for Let's Encrypt, and your account credentials have been saved into your certbot configuration directory. So everything here kind of looks like you're basically ready to go. So right here is telling us we can go here for admin, but we should be able to go to the actual address of box.theitpros.org/admin. So we'll try that, but we can try this as well. We'll kind of keep it here just in case we need it. We're going to switch back to our browser. And let's see, we're going to go to https://vox.theitpros.org/admin. And it's going to warn us because it doesn't have the SSL certificates from Let's Encrypt yet. So we're going to hit advance and we accept. And then this is going to ask you for your user. And it's going to be your email, which is theitpros.org. And then your password that you just typed in that you created. And then you can say remember me if you want to. If you're the only one that's going to use that computer, then that's fine. And you're basically going to come to this page and you can just tell these things, don't worry. And I'm going to zoom this up a little bit so you guys can kind of see what's happening here. I don't want to make it too big or it's going to be kind of messed up. There we go. So right here you've got a few tabs across the top where you can see a few things. So right here under System, so we've got Status Checks, which is going to tell you kind of how the system is set up and whether everything is set up that you need to have. And if you don't, you can go and fix those things. You've got your TLS SSL certificates. We'll check those here in a minute. You've got your backup status, so you can run backups and see backups. You've got your custom DNS, external DNS, and basically here's your Munin monitoring. So when we set up our monitoring systems, if we get one that handles Munin, we can use this. So there's a lot of stuff here and a lot of stuff that's important here that we want to know about. But then you've also got the mail side. You've got instructions on how to do things. User setup, so this is where you add users to the mail side, and then you've got aliases that you can set up, so reading the documentation about how you can use aliases is really useful. Two-factor authentication as well. Then you've got contact and calendar, and it tells you right here. This is where you're going to go for contacts. This is where you're going to go for calendar. Now again, we want to get our certificate set up, but this is basically going to take us over to that Nextcloud instance, and you're going to use the same email and password to log in when you get there if you're not already logged in. And then we've got web hosting right here, so we can say updating the web files, and they kind of tell you what kind of things you need to do and what you can do. And it basically tells you what all these things are. So we're going to go back over here to System, and we're going to go to Status Checks. So it's going to do a run where it basically checks everything, and it's going to give us some output to let us know like what's good, what needs to be checked on. So this one here, it has a question mark. So it says that we've disabled the version check with a privacy setting. I'm sure that's something we can change somewhere, but it's letting us know. Everything with a check mark is good, which means like, hey, you're set, good to go. So right here we've got this MTA STS policy is missing. STS fetch result none. So we'd have to look this up and kind of see like, okay, how do I fix this problem? But this is one for us to check since it has an X. The TLS SSL certificate for the domain is currently self-signed. So that's why we got that warning when we logged in. So we'll fix that with the Let's Encrypt stuff. Again, here's the MTA STS policy. So we'll kind of check that in a minute. We've got a question mark on the no TLS SSL certificate again. So anybody who comes to the domain basically is going to get this, so it's letting you know like, hey, you need to fix that. Our DNSSec stuff is not set up yet, so we'll probably need to set that up. We haven't set up the alias for www.theitpros.org, and they're saying, hey, you should do that because some people go to www instead of just theitpros.org. So most of this circles around TLS and SSL certificates. So let's go back up to System. Let's go to TLS and SSL certificates. And right here, we're just going to say provision a certificate. And it tells us the TLS certificate was provisioned. So for all of these different domains that it was talking about, it went and got certificates and it provisioned them. Okay, so it's telling us that we can automatically provision a certificate for Box and MTA-STS. I don't know why it didn't do that the first time we clicked it, but let's click on provision again. Okay, this time it shows us that it did do those two. So let's scroll down. It does have those. Yes, good. And let's go back to our Brave browser now. We'll do box.theitpros.org/admin. There we go. Now we've got our certificates in place, so everything's ready and set up and running with good HTTPS certificates. So that's always a good sign. So we're set there. Now, if you want to go to email instead of the admin page, you just go to box.theitpros.org or box.yourdomain.whatever/mail. And instead of taking you to the admin page, this is where all of your users would go to get to their webmail. And again, you just use the same theitpros.org and the password that you use for logging in as an admin to get to your email. I'm super amazed that I typed that correctly while I was talking, but hey, there you go. So we're into it. We've got Roundcube email set up. We're really we're rocking along. So this is good. So you've got your email here. You've got all of your folders and all of your different things you can do with email like normal. So on this one, they're talking about DNSSec. This is one that we will need to do and take care of. So they give you some different information. They give you kind of options of what you need to put in for DNSSec. So you can kind of see what the options are here. Option 3, option 4, and they give you different values. So we do need to go do this. So we're going to kind of take this and look at it, but we're going to jump over here back to hover. And if you'll remember, we're going to go back to this advanced tab and we're going to look at these different options. All right, so if we do option 1, it's got key tag. So we're just going to highlight and we're going to copy this thing just to make sure we've got it. We're going to go back over here. And there's our key tag. And then it was number 13. So right here, we're going to go double check that. So it says 13 ECD SAP 256 SHA 256. So we can just double check. And it looks like that's correct. SHA 256, good. The next one is type 2, SHA 256. So we're just going to go here and select type 2. And then we're going to go grab that digest and we're going to put that in. So we're going to grab this digest right here. And we're going to copy that. And we're going to go paste it in. And we're going to hit add record. Oh, wait, changed. It didn't take 256. There we go. Okay, so for some reason I clicked the wrong thing, but there we go. We've got our tag. We've got 13 selected. We've got 256 selected. And then we put in our digest and we're going to hit add record. All right, so we've got our DNSSec record. We've got one active DNSSec record. So it says use the first option that works, which was in my case option 1, which is great. So this should be complete. Now it may take a little time for this to check and be able to function. I don't remember how long it takes for that to show up, but you can run through the system check again and it should show up as being completed. So we've got our DNSSec done. Yeah, so when I ran through this before, I remember there being a bunch of extra steps that I had to do for the DMARC record and the DKIM record and the MX record and all those things. What I believe is happening now is that if you go set up all of your things in the order that we did, so get your IP address, make sure you already have your domain, set up these NS records that we did, these NS1 and NS2 records, and then go set those up not as just glue records, but as your DNS records. Then go back over and kind of finish setting up your server on your terminal. Run their installer, and with that DNS being set up correctly and your hostname being set up correctly, it does all of those things for you. Since it's the DNS authority, it sets up all those records for you, which is really awesome. That cuts out a lot of the steps and a lot of the manual process of having to do things. So letting your box whatever your thing is, letting your mail in a box be your DNS record for that domain is really kind of awesome in the sense that you get all of this out of it. So that's really cool. And then we kind of looked at if you want to go and set up custom DNS. So instead of box, because that didn't work, of course, if I said, you know what, I'm going to set up support.theitpros.org and I'm going to send my clients to my support page and it's going to be at a different IP, all I got to do is give it the IP address, set up the A record. If I've got like any other place, and I can set CNAME records or whatever I need. So you can see all of the different records you can set here, which is really cool. So you can get a lot of records set up. You can have a lot of different things going, and you have your DNS here. So it's really great because you can do everything right here through this command. So again, looking at mail real quick, here's instructions. So they tell you like, hey, checking and sending mail, here's the things you need to know in order to set this up. So here you go, IMAP, being able to check and sync mail. You're going to use box.theitpros.org or whatever your domain is. Port 993 SSL or TLS will work. You can use 465 for SSL. You can use so port 465 is apparently the port now. It used to be 587. I think that's what it is on my server, but that's fine. 465 works as well. And then you've got SMTP security with SSL or TLS. So this is your SMTP port, your IMAP port, IMAP security, SMTP security. And then basically your username and your password are, again, your full email address and the password you set up. So they tell you exactly how to set those things up. And then if you have Exchange or ActiveSync settings, you can set the server as box.theitpros.org. And then your options are a secure connection. So that's really cool. Think about all of the things that we just did by getting this set up on this server. And we really just ran a couple of things here on our registrar. We set up a VPS, set our registrar with the right IP address, and then ran a command in the command line that kind of asked us a few questions. And because we had things ready up front, it was really easy for us to get this set up. We went and installed our certificates. So we've got nice certificates set up and we've got nice HTTPS really ready to go. We double checked everything. Now there's one thing we need to fix. Remember the status checks. Don't forget to check those things and make sure you fix those issues. Then we've got everything set. We've got mail instructions on how to set it. We can add users. Now, one of the things that you can do with Mail in a Box, if you want to help your clients by providing them with email, you can set up a little bit beefier server and you can add their domains to this server. So they're going to set their mail server settings will still be box.theitpros.org, but their email would be bob@bobscollectibles.com, because you're going to go set up DNS records for bobscollectibles.com to make sure everything's pointing to the right place. And then you can come in and set up users for Bob at whatever. You can set up the email you want there. You can set up their password. You can make them an admin or non-admin and then add them. And the same thing, you can do that for multiple emails. It's awesome. It's an amazing piece of software. It is set up incredibly well and it's so easy to install. I mean, they've made it even easier than it used to be. It's just really cool. So aliases, again, if you want to set up email aliases, you can do this also. It's really awesome. You've got two-factor authentication if you want to set this up. So they have setup instructions, a QR code, everything like that you can get set up. So again, I'm going to destroy this server afterwards. Okay, guys. I'll create a new one. I'll run through this again and get everything right. But I just wanted you guys to be able to run through this with me. So don't worry about seeing these things on the screen. And then contacts and calendar. So we haven't gone over there, but if we click, it should take us over to our contacts. So this is going to open up. It's going to bring us to our Nextcloud. And again, I'm going to use that same email, brian@theitpros.org. And I'll put in my password. That's the hard thing about having really long, strong passwords is typing them out. So this should log me in with no issues. Here we go. Yeah, so we're logged into Nextcloud. I've got my contacts right here. I can do the same thing for calendar. So I don't even have to log out and go to the calendar thing. I can just click on it. It's going to take me over to the calendar tab. I can start setting up events. It's going to use my email to send things out, which is awesome. So everything's already kind of set up. I've got my calendar events. I can set up shared users. Again, back in the user setup, we can set that up, and then we can come over here and set up calendars where everybody can subscribe to those calendars. And then you've also got your files. So they don't disable the files part of Nextcloud, which is awesome. So you've got your different files. You can go set up different files. You can share files. You've got settings. So you've got the WebDAV sync. If you want to set up like something like Joplin notes and have your team be able to access those things, you can set up the WebDAV for the syncing for the notes, which is cool. And then right here, you've got all of the standard Nextcloud kind of default documents. They can show you a few different things that you can do in Nextcloud, which is great. You can add documents, add folders, share things, give people a shared link. It's really awesome to be able to use Nextcloud. I think it's a tool that even separate from the email, we'll probably end up eventually installing because it has so much other capability built into it. It's really, really pretty cool. And we want to get it on a little bit beefier system if we're going to use it for anything kind of heavy. But this is it. Mail in a Box is set up. We're ready to go. We've got the itpros.org set up with the email and everything like that. So I'm excited about this. I hope you guys are. I hope you'll get out there, find an IP address that is not on a block list, set up your VPS, and get your email set up and installed. You'll have contacts, calendars, email, just everything ready. You better start adding your users. Your business is going to have a professional email that you'll be proud of and that you can hand out to your clients and that they can reach you on. That is just a huge, huge thing in this day and age. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along on the open source journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.